Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Hi, Pat. This is Anthony. I can hear you
Hi.
loud and clear.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Good, good, good.
For your information, Cheryl can't make it. She just sent an email,
Yeah, I
and
saw that.
okay. And we're just waiting for one more member to have a quorum.
Okay. Just for your FYI, I have another meeting coming up right after this. So I'm gonna only be on the call until 2:15. So Jim, can you adjourn the meeting if it lasts longer?
I can do that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anthony, have you tried to talk at all to Anon to find out what his circumstances are and how we can help him participate in these meetings?
The last time he made it, today for this meeting, he said he couldn't make it. Um,
Well,
the last time,
he's
the
only at
last,
like a few meetings, so I think
yeah,
we either have to figure out how to accommodate him or get somebody else because it's
yeah,
really difficult when you only have five members of a committee to begin
yeah.
with and one of them never shows up. I mean, I'm willing to help find a solution to getting him the help he needs so he can participate. But if he can't
Okay.
make, you know,
He did mention that this day wasn't a good time, but yeah, we can talk after.
Jim, do you know whether Katie can make it today or not?
I thought she could. I really don't know. Um, and I've tried to
We're,
call her.
we're reaching out to um Katie.
I've tried to
Um
call her twice in the last half hour and got no answer.
yeah. And the last time we did, Katie actually did reply to my message earlier this week saying that she'll be there, and then she also um responded a couple of last week also said that she was going to be there, so we can wait for a little bit.
Jim, what's latest on HB 1976?
It is pending in the Ways and Means Committee, and I just called them, and the person I got said they wanted an email request for a hearing, and I said I already sent one, and she said, "What's your email address?" And I gave it to her, and she said, "Fine, I'll look for it and put it at the top of the list."
Okay. Oh, good.
Yeah, I thought that was good. I knew she was going to ask me to send an email, so of course I had already sent one much earlier. So, yeah.
Do we have to send testimony to them, or do we already? I think I already did that.
Yeah, we probably don't have to, but can't hurt. Normally at this point, the committee certainly doesn't take in-person testimony. They call it decision-making only. And for hearings that are decision-making only, you can submit testimony, but you don't have to. And they pretty much will go along with what's been done.
There's someone connecting in my.
So anyway, I'll let you know.
Okay. Oh, I know you will.
Yeah, I'll do that. Our drop dead time is Friday. So if we haven't passed by Friday, better luck next year.
Oh God.
I know. But we may make it. This is the nail biting time at the Ways and Means Committee. You just it's like a cattle call, really.
Yeah. I can send them an email too. I didn't know, I didn't know what was happening next. I rely on you to tell me what to do when. So
I can after the meeting, I'll share the email I sent them, and you can see if you want to send them one. Yeah.
Yeah. Gosh. Ah. Drives me nuts. I don't see how Hawaii gets anything done.
No. Hey, wait a minute. The U.S. Congress passed 30 laws last year, and state of Hawaii passed 450.
Aloha, Pat. It's Katie Kime. Sorry, I am here. I was trying to get unmuted and videoed, and I'm here. Aloha.
So, compared to the U.S. Congress, I think we're doing a lot better.
Okay. Katie,
what's that?
What do you have around your neck?
Oh, I had a mask on, and so I dropped it below my chin, and I forgot to take it off. I'm triple tasking, Pat. So
I thought you had a neck brace on. Oh my God!
No. My black mask I drop and I pull up according to environments. Yeah.
All right. I think I'll call the meeting to order, and I'll read this damn script. This meeting of the Statewide Elections Accessibility Needs Advisory Committee is called to order. It is 1:30 p.m. on April 2nd, 2024. The meeting is being conducted by video conference and telephone. Committee members, please keep your cameras on for the duration of the meeting. I will now call the roll call. I know Mondo's not here, Cheryl's not here, Katie's here, Jim's here, and Pat Marcy's here. So we'll go on to the next item. Pursuant to HRS 92-3.5, you're required to disclose if anyone is present with you for the meeting. Committee members, are you
yeah, James Gashel. I am here alone.
Okay. Katie
Kime, I'm here alone.
Okay. Pat Marcy, she's here alone. All right. Additionally, pursuant to HRS 92-3.7, we will be meeting remotely using interactive conference technology. As a reminder to the public, your microphones will be muted until you're called upon. Public testimony. As it relates to public testimony, it will be taken after each agenda item. If you'd like to testify, click raise hand under reactions on Zoom. If you're joining us by phone, press *9. When recognized, unmute your microphone and for the record state your first and last name and the items you will be testifying on. To ensure that we will have sufficient time to hear all testimony, each testifier will have 3 minutes to testify. Once your time has expired, you'll be asked to conclude your remarks. As technical issues may arise, we will give each testifier a few minutes to try and resolve any connection issues. However, if the issues cannot be resolved, we will have to move on to the next testifier. Agenda. After each agenda item I will ask if there are comments from the public. Okay, so now we will begin. First thing we have to do is to approve the March 12th, 2024 meeting minutes. I move that they be adopted.
Oh, Gash will second.
Okay, is there anybody wants to add anything or say anything? All right, I think we'll consider them approved. All right, the next item on the agenda is the update from the Office of Elections on the status of the committee's previous recommendations relating to voter education, outreach, and accessible voting. So, Anthony, it's all yours.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see. Okay, the following updates. OE is currently drafting language for the electronic ballot delivery information. That information is the information that is on the email that goes out to voters who receives a accessible vote by mail, as well as the instructions. So that is being currently drafted, and we also sent that to the committee so that they can share any feedback.
Yeah, I appreciate that you sent us 2 things to review, and I hope we do this from now on all the time because it's very helpful. And I know that you had the deadline of April 9th for the one document. I can't remember whether I don't think you had a deadline for the second one, but I urge you to let us know, when you need our feedback so people will be responsive to it.
Yes.
Okay. I think I'm going to flip the order of the next 2 things, like actions that we need to take between now and the election and update on HB 1976. Jim, why don't you give people a summary of where we are and for those who didn't hear it, and then we'll go on to what we need to do between now and the elections to help people.
Okay, so HB 1976, just for people who are not aware, that's a bill to require the Office of Elections to request annually funds to support activities of the statewide elections accessibility needs advisory committee, this committee, and to make an appropriation now for this year. The bill has passed the House, 2 committees in the House, and the House has now passed the joint committee meeting of the Judiciary Committee and Health and Human Services Committee, and is pending in the Ways and Means Committee. That's its last committee. And the Judiciary Committee added an amendment to the bill, which actually put money in this is unusual. It put in $10,000, and that was good. So we're hoping at this point that the Ways and Means Committee will just pass the bill as is. And the next 3 days are critical. And I've requested a hearing on this bill. And I called in a second time just before this meeting and talked to a person. She said that she would put my email at the top of the pile. Hopefully that's true. Of course, the next guy that comes along put his email at the top of the pile. So maybe it'll be somewhere near the top. This is normal procedure for the last couple of days before what's called the second decking. Everything kind of piles up at the Ways and Means Committee, and they hold very long hearings with not much testimony, but just decision making. And so that's what I anticipate. So I'm hoping that HB 1976 will go through the Ways and Means Committee this week and then pass the Senate. And then it'll be a question of differences. And there would be a difference because the House had no money in their bill. It passed. I mean, they weren't against money, just leave that blank at this point. Senate now has $10,000. So there will be a difference between the bills. That means it goes to a Senate and House conference, and that would occur during the last 2 weeks of April. So that's where we are.
If I'm going to ask you two questions. One, is there a document out there in the universe somewhere that describes how the legislature actually operates, like you have in your head, that I can read or not?
Well, yeah, more or less. You should look at the public access room.
Okay.
So go to hawaii.gov and search for the public capital.hawaii.gov and search for the public access room.
Okay.
They have lots of good stuff on how the legislature operates.
Okay. Really? How it really operates?
Really does operate, yeah. Now,
okay.
One thing I want to tell you for sure is, so let's assume that we clear the Ways and Means Committee, and then it'll pass the Senate. Then you get down to the conference. Almost nobody can tell you how that's going to operate. You just don't know.
Okay, I have one. Can I ask you a question? I know early on we talked about whether we should include or the bill should include an amount of money in it to begin with. And I know we talked, and I think the conclusion we reached is no, you don't put money in, they do it later. Would have been smarter, no, if the Finance Committee and the Ways and Means Committee both received bills with nothing in it, and they both have put $10,000 in it at that point, that would have been, then there'd be no conference. So, for future reference.
So I can tell you that, yeah, I understand your question. But what's going to happen when you put money in at the beginning is the substantive committees take it out and leave it blank. That's their procedure. So it gets to the Finance Committee or the Ways and Means Committee blank. I was actually very surprised that the Judiciary Committee put money in, and I've never seen that happen before.
Should the Finance Committee have done it?
No, not necessarily. That what they really like to do is leave it until the very end, and they put it in at the end, and that's the normal procedure. I'm glad that Senator Rhodes put it in, but I've just never seen it done before. And I didn't see him after the hearing, so I didn't have a chance to ask him. I'd like to get an explanation of what he was,
Okay.
Anyway,
but I still have another question. I'm trying to understand what they've done. It seems to me that we ended up with one bill early in the process. The Senate bill kind of disappeared or died. And so we were left with one bill, which was the House bill. And so my question is, why didn't the Finance Committee and the House put money in at that point? So that was the last time it was going to see the bill.
Well, it would see it again if the Senate put money in, and then it would see it because it would be in conference, and that's where they would decide, 10,000 or whatever it is.
But what you're describing suggests to me that every bill on the face of the earth in Hawaii has to go through a conference because of this rather weird.
No, it's not weird. That's basically correct. It's very unusual that a bill doesn't go to conference. And I'll tell you one other little sideline that Hawaii does that you'll find very, very interesting. And I don't remember what's the case on this bill, but normally what they do to make sure there's going to be a difference between the Senate and the House, they, even in the first committee that hears the bill, they will amend it by putting in at the end what they call a defective effective date. So you'll see bills effective 2045. That's a defective effective date. And then at the very end, they will put in the real effective date. But they do this because one time they enacted a bill that they really didn't want to enact. And so they came up with this idea of a defective effective date so that if they did accidentally let this bill go through, it wouldn't become effective for another 20 years.
God. Anything I say on what you described would probably not be good for public, because I'm not going to say it, Yeah. All right. Are there any comments from Katie, do you have any
just to let you,
no
sorry.
comments, Pat. I'm just laughing because I'm familiar with this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
There is one hand raised, Pat, Donald Sakamoto.
Okay, Donald.
Good afternoon, everybody. Donald Sakamoto, County Chair for the Elections Special Needs Needs Committee, Advisory Committee. Pat, great meeting. James, thank you for the report. I'm familiar with HB 1976, but recommendation for next meetings, if you do have something listed, could you put a description what it is so those people who are new may not know what the bill was, and maybe a link of the bill, what it says, so that people can probably respond and testify next time. That's my only recommendation. Yeah, thank you. But wonderful.
But we've been talking about this for like 4 months, so I assume that people know at this point what it is. But I think it's a great idea generally, and we've already been asked by somebody else to put more detail on the agenda, so we will try to do that. Anybody else, Anthony?
Chair, there's currently no other raised hands.
Okay. The next item is, things we can do to help voters with disabilities between now and the election. And when Jim and I presented that PAC-RAM, I had like 9 things on my list. And I've decided today I just want to throw out 3 and maybe have a conversation about how we go about dealing with them instead of having all 9, because it could be overwhelming. The first thing is, I think we need to train and provide information to people that will be at voter voting centers on how to assist people with disabilities or how to treat people with disabilities. And I'd be willing to be, the lead on pulling that stuff together. But I'd like other people to help me, including people that might be in the audience, even if it's just a case of reviewing stuff. And then obviously, Natalie and Anthony, you can help us figure out how we do this. I think one live training for all people that are going to be at voting centers to help the public, and a booklet of some kind, or a sheet of some kind with tips are two products that we need. The second thing is, and this came up at PAC-REM, is the idea of a hotline of some kind where anybody with a question could call, and if they had accessibility questions, it could be for the general public too, for all I know, but they could call and say, for example, I want to vote in person, I need a ride. Do you all have any free rides to the voting place? That would be an example of a question they might ask. So how to set that up and how to feed information to that and prepare information for it. So the people answering the hotline can answer questions or have somebody to go to respond and get back to this person. And the third thing is a big deal for people that like to vote live, and that is transportation. And so I think that, how do we do that? How do we get, assuming we get some of this $10,000, I'd be up for spending some of that money on giving free rides. My inclination is we call the taxi services in the state, and we call Uber, whoever the lead for Uber is in Hawaii, and say, we are committed to giving you X number of dollars to give people rides back and forth to voting centers if you would do that. And then they would bill us with evidence, and they would get paid. So those are my three big ideas. And now I'll just Jim, what do you think?
Well, I like all three of the ideas. On the first one, work with voter service centers. Of course, we need to hear from the OE staff about this, but my guess is that we would be interacting with the counties, since as far as I know, the counties run the voter service centers. And so in terms of scheduling training, I'm sure the counties provide training to the voter service centers, and maybe OE does this as well. But I do think it's a good idea to have a session, a few minutes or whatever, on access needs. I really am for that. And the others seem to deal with transportation, and there ought to be a way to offset people's costs to get to the voter service centers. I agree.
Right. Well, I don't care how we do any of this stuff. I just want it to happen. And I figure that if we start talking about these three things now and get them nailed down in the next 2 months, then we can take on some of the other ones that are on the list of 9. But these, I think, are the most important ones. And I don't think we're talking about a zillion people, because the number of people that actually are going to vote live is probably very, very limited. So it's not going to break the bank or kill anybody. I just think it's I think back to the survey that we did, and the 2 people that gave a written explanation of what their challenges were about how long they stand in line. For example, if somebody does go and they are in a wheelchair or something else, have somebody at the service center know to bring that person to the front of the line. I mean, it's not so much I mean, it's common sense in a way, but you know, that kind of thing. Increase awareness of service center people so they naturally, using common sense, do the right thing when they encounter a person with a disability. And I think that's most important. Katie, do you have anything you'd like to add or subtract from this list?
Not subtract, Pat, and I don't know if it's an addition. I absolutely agree with you. On the first point, because I have not been to a polling center since we've gone mail-in ballots, but I have a question for the Office of Elections, and I think probably Jim has pointed to it, the counties. In the past, there was one lead at a polling center, and there were multiple polls in the past. And volunteers didn't always come until that day, and then they got a brief training or an overview then. How is it handled now, Anthony, that we could reach as many of the people that volunteer at our limited polling centers as of the way we do elections now in person?
Anthony?
So that is, the voter service centers are managed by the counties.
Mm-hmm.
So that would need to be inquired through the counties.
Okay. So because we have access to the county clerks, and we're familiar with who they are through you and other means, then how would we arrange to set that up as a statewide entity and not the county? Because that would be done through you or through us directly. Because I know you used to go out and do a lot of education and training on disability and the polling machines, Anthony.
So by law, the county election divisions establish the voter service centers, and they staff the voter service centers, so they would provide the training to the voter service center staffing.
I think what we could do, Katie, is I can prepare an email. I mean, we know, like you said, we know 2 clerks now, and they were both really nice, and they said they would help things going forward. I have not reached out to the other 3 because or other 2. I wanted to, focus on this stuff today. So before we meet next, I'll reach out to all the clerks individually and ask them if they'll come to our meeting. On the next meeting is on April 12th, I believe.
Not April.
Oh, not April.
May.
May. Okay, May's not an issue. I read something earlier on that said April 12th. I don't know what. Oh, I think it was a typo. It was referring to today. Okay, so the first Tuesday of May, I'll try to urge the guys the clerks to come and maybe have a conversation about how we could do it. I think a tip sheet or a little booklet or pamphlet, a fold out thing would be a good thing to have, because people, like you said, who come the last day, the day of voting. So I guess one of you can answer this for me. The voting centers are only open on one day, and that's election day. There's not like pre-election.
No, they're open. They're open. Now maybe the OE staff knows the exact times, but they're open several days, and it may depend on the particular center, but they're open several days before the election. And I guess it may be sometime within that 19-day period from the time mail ballots are sent out until the actual election day, something like that. Anthony, do you know the details on when the voter service centers are open?
Voter service centers are open 10 days prior.
There you go.
Through election day, and some locations may have different modified schedules, but that's dependent upon the county election division. For your information, Pat, we do have one hand raised.
Okay.
So Donald Sakamoto.
Pat, I would agree with you on the tip sheets or something that is a quick reference for accessibility as well as treatment of individuals that's available to those polling centers for everybody to read, and that it's part of the county's training to their staff or volunteers, depending on how it works these days. But I also, in inviting the county offices, the clerks to come, can we be sure that we have on the agenda something that we are very specifically addressing with them, the training for the disability, accessibility needs? Because I know we've run into that before if it's not on the agenda, but making it a broad, but a training point.
I'll copy
Yeah,
that.
Gashel here.
I'll copy you guys on the email I send them. So
sure, okay.
I'll be specific. But the issue, you know, I'm interested in the people at the service centers that are involved in helping people vote or directing the traffic or doing whatever they do. You know, those are people that, you know, I want to make sure that they're not clueless and do the right things, you know?
Yeah, Gashel here.
Okay.
I'm also going to suggest that, I think you kind of referenced this, but we should, the sheet, which I think the sheet's a great idea. And I see that as a state responsibility. We could definitely help the counties by preparing this, you know, accessibility needs tip sheet.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I think we should do that. I think we should do that before the May meeting.
Well, I will try to do that before the May meeting, but I've got other obligations. I'll do a draft. I'll do a draft and get it out.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not talking about rocket science here. I'm talking about common sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. So I was thinking like a threefold thing, you know, so you'd have 8x11 sheet of paper with a total of 3 columns on the side, and it would have just basic information about when you interact with somebody who has a visual impairment or is deaf or who's in a wheelchair, or, you know, here's what you do, you know, like there are 3 things to remember. You know, don't put your arms all over a wheelchair. Don't, you know, grab a blind person's arm so tight that they, you know, fall over. Things like that. You know, and it's like, you know, or ask the people how they can be assisted.
Simple.
Right. I'm not talking about anything complicated. All right. So my job is to contact all the clerks and with a user-friendly email with an idea, and then to do a draft and get that to you guys so you can look at it. And maybe final by the time we have the meeting. All right, that would be great. Great. Okay, Donald, now it's your turn.
Oh yeah, thank you, Chair. Good discussion. Just to let everybody know, at the last election, I think it was 2022, Glenn Takahashi, the head clerk, and Rex Cordella, elections from Honolulu, they had 2 other voting centers, one on the winner side for 5 days in person, and then they had one, I think, in Waihewa for 5 days. So a combination of 10 days before the Kapolei and the Honolulu Hale voter sites were open. So that's great that they had that. Regarding people with different disabilities, I would say collaborate with the developmental disability people, like maybe Dangerous Group, Ho'opono, other agencies, to see how they interact with their people with different disabilities. So we have a collaboration of all that. And then for transportation, I deal with transportation like with Paratrans and Handyvan, but there's a nonprofit organization called Catholic Charities that has alternative vehicles for wheelchair walkers and other devices, so they can transfer people. Maybe they might be able to be contracted out for Oahu just to help out with the elections, because private industry doesn't have too many vehicles that have wheelchair lifts and whatnot. It's usually the paratransit or maybe Catholic Charities, not too much the cab companies or Uber, or Lyft.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now on the hotline, and also the outreach to the people that Donald mentions, Can you guys at the Office of Elections do that? You know, we can help make the list of, you know, questions that should be able to be answered by a hotline that affect people with disabilities. But do you have a hotline generally? Anthony?
Hi, Chair. The Office of Elections is open Monday through Friday. So if people do have questions, they can call that number. In addition, on election day, there is a hotline that people are able to call in, and that's staffed and manned. So during that time, if people on the election day, if people do have questions, definitely that is staffed and manned.
Okay, so if we get
Geschel.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yes.
So you meant, I know there's a number all the time you can call to the Office of Elections, but do you actually have a separate hotline number, Anthony, that you deploy for just the one day, the election day?
The election day, the hotline gets transferred into our statewide. So yes.
So
it's a general 453-8683.
Yeah, it's the same number, right? Year round, anytime.
Yes.
Okay, so I could, because you mentioned the voter service centers. Well, the actual election is occurring over almost a 3-week period when you mail out the ballots, and then we come to election day. That's almost a 3-week period. So I'm going to imagine that this is the major time when you might be getting telephone calls. Is that basically right?
Hi, James. This is Madeline from the Office of Elections.
Yes.
Hi, yes. So as Anthony said, the number that is sent, that's for the public, the 453-8683, that's manned year-round. So anyone can call questions. And during election season, we do get an increase of calls during the period when ballots do go out. And staff does continue to man the phones and answer inquiries from the public, whether it's email, phone, calls, and so we do answer all those inquiries.
Right. So what I'm understanding is, Madam Chair, although we may be able to supplement this with information specifically regarding disability or accessibility needs, basically the system is already in place. In effect, there is a hotline.
Yeah, so I guess it gets to a broader question. The 3 things we're talking about today: transportation, help at a voting center, and a hotline. We have to aggressively advertise that these things exist, you know, and how to access them. So, for example, if you have a question about voting, you dial this number, you know, and we have a public service announcement that says this, or something else. Because even if they exist, if we don't promote them, nobody's not going to know about them. So that was the last point that I was going to bring up. That we need to be really, we can give ideas and information to Anthony and Netaline to add to the information that the people that answer the hotline have. So if these questions come up, they can answer them. So frequently asked questions from people with disabilities, we can make that list. Maybe I can do that by too, you know.
An accessibility FAQ.
Oh yeah. Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's the key thing. Are you got Anthony or Netaline, are you going to do public service announcements either on radio or TV?
So, Chair, when we do our commercials and our ads or news releases, we do include information with our phone number, our email address, so the public can reach us. So that's always included in every media piece that we send out to the public.
But if, let's say we want one that talks about accessibility, would you guys be willing to do one on that specifically?
The accessibility is always rolled into our main commercials and ads. It's never separated. I believe that was a recommendation from the committee to always include it in our ads and messaging. So we rolled that in as one. So there's no separate.
I understand that, and I'm really glad that you're doing that. But what I'm suggesting is that if you had a public service announcement that said, this announcement is for people with disabilities. We want to let you know that we have a hotline that can answer your questions. We have a system that provides reduced rate or free rides to voting centers, and all people working at voting centers will be able to help you if you decide to vote in public and person at a voting center. That's going to take up at least 30 seconds. And so it couldn't be just an add-on to one you do already. But I think if you did that, then more people with disabilities would be inclined to vote.
I know that for our ads, we do include that the voter service centers provide accessible voting services. So I know that messaging is already in there. The hotline, we can definitely include information about that. In regards to the transportation, I don't know. I can't say that we would be able to do that because that would be something I would have to take back to the office as I don't know if we would be able to promote free transportation for voting. So I would have to look into that.
Okay, if you look into that between now and May, that would be good, just so we have an idea. And I think Donald gave a suggestion that Catholic Charities may be the most receptive to the idea. But I think you should call Charlie's Taxi too. You know, I've used them before with my scooter, and they've been, you know, really helpful.
What would be helpful is the committee could provide us a list of these organizations that provide such services so that if someone does call our office, we would have something to refer them to. So if, for example, if Catholic Charities does provide that, we can share that contact information with the individual.
Yeah. Well, why don't you go ahead and, you know, talk to who you have to talk to and talk to Catholic Charities, you know, and we'll find out. I mean, I don't know. I mean, other than the handy van, I know they, you know, obviously they're obvious. They're a state-run service. So you could check them too.
Yes, we'll do some research on our end. But again, if the committee also has some suggestions, we'd be happy to take that from you folks too. But we'll go ahead and do some research on that as well.
Okay. I have to go now. I apologize. I have another commitment. But so Jim, I'm going to turn things over to you. And I've got
Donald Sakamoto has his hand raised, but
okay, Donald, go ahead.
Sorry, before Donald goes on, I'm sorry. If the chair has left, we do lose quorum, vice chair. You need 3 for a meeting to continue. And I believe I don't see her on the screen.
They don't allow the gift.
Hold on.
Yeah, I was trying to recognize Donald Sakamoto to go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Chair. I believe she, Chair.
Okay, but
she has left the meeting.
Go with option 1, which Katie and I first offered.
So that means we would lose quorum.
Yeah, she left the meeting, and Gashel here sitting in as vice chair to chair the remainder of the meeting.
Yes, but my understanding is you do need 3 members for quorum to continue with the meeting.
Nettlin, I'm not understanding you.
Jim, this is Katie.
Yeah.
So for us to continue the meeting, we have to have 3 people on the committee
Oh.
present to establish quorum, and we do not.
Oh.
And so what I'm not certain about, Nadeline, is whether or not we can continue if it's informational only, or if
Yeah, can we,
quorum.
I understand. Yeah, go ahead.
May I ask Deputy Ichi Nakamura if you would be able to provide advice on this? Thank you.
Yes, hello, committee members. Yes, at this time, we don't have a quorum. So I would advise not continuing the meeting. I would advise adjournment. If there's information that needs to be added, I would just add it to the next meeting.
Okay, I understand. That's fine. So for the OE staff, in writing up the minutes, be clear on what agenda items we did not get to when Chair Morrissey had to leave the meeting, and then we can include those items on the agenda for the May meeting.
Yes, Vice Chair, we'll go ahead and do that.
Thank you. Okay, then we really have no option. If there's no objection, I'll just declare the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
And thank you.